We're learning Likutei Sichos. Likutei Sichos Chelek Yud Beis, the Sicha of Parshas Acharei. First of all, I would like to begin by saying that the learning today, and all those who are learning together with us, the learning should be l'schus l'refuah shlema for Raphael Avram Yeshaya ben Rivka. The Ezra should give him a refuah shlema ukreva. Take it from the yad. The Sicha we're going to learn today is a Rashi Sicha, a very seemingly straightforward and beautiful explanation on this Rashi. The Rashi that we're talking about is coming on the pasuk. The first half of Parshas Acharei speaks about the Aveda in the Beis Hamikdash on Yom Kippur, and then the second half, which incidentally, or not incidentally, we read by Mincha at Yom Kippur, and it begins the parsha of the Arayos, of forbidden marriages. That's in Parshas Acharei and continues a little bit into Parshas Kedoshim. So the pasuk begins with the words Daber al bnei Yisrael v'amart aleim ani Hashem Elokeichem k'masi eretz Mitzrayim asher yishaftem bo leisasu. Speak to the Yidden and tell them, Aya ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am the Eibishter. Then tells them they should not follow in the ways of Eretz Mitzrayim, where they had lived for some time. They should not follow in the ways of the Mitzrayim. Rashi b'perushi ala psukim daber lo b'nei Yisrael v'amart aleim ani Havai Elokeichem k'ma'aseh Eretz Mitzrayim asher shaftem bo leisasu v'geimar mighty kesateves. Rashi quotes the words Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am the Eibishter, your Eibishter u'mefarish. And Rashi says two pshatim, two explanations as to what the pasuk is trying to tell us with the words Ani Hashem Elokeichem. U'mefarish, and he explains Ani hu she'amarti b'Sinai anechi Hashem Elokeichem, I am the one who spoke to you on Har Sinai and said the words Anechi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Eibishter. V'kibaltem aleichem malchusi, and you accepted upon yourselves my kingdom, my kingship. So meyata kablu gzeiraisai. So at this point, since you've already accepted me as your king, now it's time to accept my decrees. So that's one pshat, one pirush of Rashi. Rabbi Omer. Then Rashi brings a second pirush in the name of Rabbi. Golui v'yadua lefanav. It is known and is revealed to the Eibishter himself. Sheseifan lenatek ba'arayis b'mei Ezra. That in the end, in the time, the days, in the era, in the period of Ezra HaNavi, Ezra HaSofer, the Yidden are going to be menatek ba'arayis. I think in some of the English translations they use the word revolt, which means to rebel, to go against the Eibishter. Later in the Sikha, we're going to see that the word lenatek, which literally means to disengage or to disconnect, is a very important word here. So Seifan, in the end, they're going to disconnect or disengage through or because of Arayis, the Fichach Ba'aleim B'Gzeira, and therefore he comes upon them in a Gzeira, in a decree, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am the Eibishter, Du'u mi gezer aleichem, know who is the one who is making this gezerah, this decree upon you. Dayan lihipara, a judge with consequences that pays, consequences that punishes. V'ne'eman l'shalem schar, and is faithful, is trustworthy, that he's going to give the reward when it is warranted. That's the Rashi. So Abir Apashat B'Pirush Rashi hu. The simple explanation, the simple understanding in Rashi is L'cheirei muvan. Mai kavana b'tzivu zeh shemeshi yadaber al bnei Yisrael v'yadiyem ki ani Hashem Elokeichem. L'cheirei, what's the purpose of this commandment to Moshe to tell the Yidden that the Eibishter is the Eibishter? Ma'ara chidush b'zeh. What's the chidush? What is he introducing? What is the novelty here? Since he already took them out of Mitzrayim, he gave them the Torah. The Yidden all know who the Eibishter is. So Rashi is wondering, what's this new commandment? Tell the Yidden Ani Hashem Elokeichem. Mavai Rashi. So Rashi says this is not a command that the Eibishter is saying Ani Hashem Elokeichem. It's an introduction to what's about to come, what's about to follow. Since you were Mekabel, my Malchus, since you were Mekabel, my kingship, my rulership, upon yourselves. It is incumbent upon you to accept upon yourselves the commandments and the decrees that are about to be given to you. That's the explanation. It's basically that Niyashem Lekechem is an introduction to these halachas. Meisif Rashi Pirusheni, the Rashi gives a second Pirush. Shemikivan Shesef and Natok Baraya, since they're going to get stuck, they're going to rebel, specifically in this area that they're about to discuss in the Torah. And therefore he comes down harshly to tell them, before you get involved with this type of Aveda, you should know who you're dealing with. You should know that there's a punishment when you transgress, and there's a reward when you follow. So this is the Pashto Pshat. The Pashto Pshat is Aniyah Shem Lekechem by itself seems extra here, seems superfluous, and therefore Rashi explains that it's an introduction to the following laws. And the first pshat and the second pshat is that he needed an extra azhara because he knew that they were going to struggle with this specific area. So if this is the pshat in Rashi, we're going to have 8 questions, and we'll go in the order. Number 1. In the beginning of Parshas Ve'era, we also have a similar pasuk where the Eibishter speaks to Moshe and tells him, Ani Hashem. A person could ask the question, what's Pshat Ani Hashem? So Kvar Pirush Rashi. So over there already in Parshas Ve'era, Rashi teaches, Vayemer Elav Ani Hashem, Ne'eman l'shalem sochar tov l'misalchem lefonav v'chulu. That Hashem is trustworthy to repay with proper reward, with good reward, those who go before Him in the proper way. And Rashi continues, and this lashon and this understanding, interpretation of these words is found in various places throughout the Chumash, where the Chumash says, and the pasuk says, Ani Hashem, and we touch Naaman li para. We could trust him to pay a punishment, and we could trust him to pay a reward. So we could just, like we said it over there, we had it over there, that it means that Hashem is trusted to pay either the reward or the punishment. We could have said the same thing here. Rashi himself says that in other places we'll find the same words, and this will be the meaning to it. So why can't we apply what it says over there in Parshas Ve'era over here? Number 1, Rashi asks the same question again over here. Rashi explains it differently. It's a different pshat than it is over there. So first of all, why is Rashi bringing it up if it was already answered? And second of all, if Rashi is answering it, why does he answer it differently than he does over there? The second question. Mahu bepashtus ha'inyanim inyan kabbalas malchusi zulas kabbalas ha'gzeres v'hamitzvos. In the Pshat and Rashi says that yes, you are Mekabel my Malchus, you are Mekabel the Eibishter as king. Now you have to be Mekabel the Gzeres. He's going to ask, what's the difference? What is Kabbalas HaMalchus without Kabbalas HaGzeres? What happened until now? The whole idea of accepting a king is that he accepts upon himself whatever the king will command. As we see in the Rashi on the pasuk Anechi Hashem Lekecha from the Acharei Adibris, which Rashi references that pasuk here in this Rashi. So he says, I am Hashem who took you out of Mitzrayim. So Rashi says, the fact that I took you out of Mitzrayim, it makes it worth it for you, makes it appropriate for you that you should be meshubah to me. You should be committed to me. Hainu, shemefarish anechi Hashem alekecha shetechane kabbalas hamalchus shetiyu meshubadim li. That Rashi explains that what does it mean? I am Hashem alekecha, where I am. You're accepting me as your Hashem, as your Melech. That you should be meshubah to me, you should be committed to me. Meaning what? To serve Hashem through fulfilling His mitzvahs. And as we see very clearly in the previous Rashi, in right before Vaydaber Hashem Elokim es kol advarim ha'ela, so Rashi says, "Fishes parshis b'terushim ason adam mekabel schar v'im lav eini mekabel poranus yachal afaseres libris kain Talmud leimar Vaydaber Elokim." So Rashi says on the pasuk before the Aseret Dibris that since there are certain parashas in Torah where it says that if a person does them, he gets schar, and if not, he still won't get punished for it. In other words, Hashem rewards for those who do it, but does not punish those who don't do it. Therefore, over here he starts with the words Vayedaber Elokim, which Elokim is the Shem HaGvura, to say that the Eibishter is a dayan lipara, that the Eibishter does punish when you don't keep the mitzvahs. In other words, what we see from over here is the fact that he says the word imason, that if a person does the mitzvahs, he gets schar, he doesn't get schar, that there's the emphasis on the aseres hadibris of Anechi Hashem Elokecha is an asiyas ha-mitzvahs. So, in that case, what is Kabbalah Sagzedis? Sorry, v'kan mechalkom v'kibaltam aleichem malchusi me'ata kablu gzeidoisai. So over there we understood kablu malchusi means to do all the mitzvahs, except Hashem as king, to be mishubad as a subject of Hashem, which means to follow His commands. Over here in this Rashi, he separates them. First there's Kabbalah Malchus, and then there's Kabbalah Sagzedis. So what is Kabbalah Malchus without Kabbalah Sagzedis? Question 3. The Kabbalah Malchus l'chud. If you're going to say it's two separate things, Im kein ho yotzarich liyos bo hatzivui lekabbalah hamitzvos keidem shenitztavu bnei Yisrael b'mitzvah rishona. Tzarich liyos bo hatzivui. Not exactly sure that grammar rolls, but the question is very simple. If you need to have a special Kabbalah Sagzedis in addition to Kabbalah Malchus, then the Kabbalah Sagzedis should have come earlier on, before the mitzvahs. Before Hashem tells the mitzvahs, He should have said, "Be mekabel magzeh, ani Hashem Elokeichem kabel gzereisai." And then all of a sudden over here, after we've learned many mitzvahs and we haven't learned some other mitzvahs, mitamol here comes kabel gzereisai. Question Daled. Ma'u diuk lashon Rashi mi'ata kablu gzereisai v'lei mitzveisai v'kayetze b'zeh kiragil b'pirush Rashi v'reiv ha'makemis. The word gzereisai is another question. Again, this is all based on our understanding of Rashi. That Rashi says, that Rashi is explaining why did it say Ani Hashem Elokeichem, and that it's an introduction to these new gzeiros that are being introduced in this parsha. Why are we calling them gzeiros? They're mitzvahs. Mitzvahs hasei, mitzvahs leis hasei. They're mitzvahs. Why the word gzeiros? Question hey, which is a question that for those of you who've been learning with us in the past are very familiar with this question. Duber kamapamim shekasher Rashi mefaresh beis pirushim meyeser binyan echad. Harei zeichacha shebechalechad me'apirushim yesheizer kushi sheini ba'asheni. Lachem bevishneim. It's been spoken about many times, even within the few weeks that we've been learning, a few months that we've been learning together. This has been brought up a number of times, that when there's two pirushim in Rashi, it means that each one has a shverikeit. Each one has a question that the other one answers, or that doesn't exist in the other one, and therefore Rashi is compelled to bring both. In our case, seemingly both of these are very consistent with Psutei Shel Mikra. So what compels Rashi to bring both of these pirushim? Question 6, another pirush, another question that we have become accustomed to. Maskir b'pirushai, maskir shem bala memra shel hapirush hamuva. It is not the common practice of Rashi to mention the one who said this teaching, since it is not relevant to Psutei Shel Mikra. And since Rashi normally does not bring the name of the Bala Memra, implies that when he does, Rashi believes that it is relevant to understanding this pirush. וצריך להבין מה ניתסף בהבנת הפירוש השני בזה שאמרי רבי. What is added on to the understanding of the second pshat in the fact that it was said by Rabbi. Zayin haloshon haragel b'shaychas la'averu la'aver likoshel v'kayetze bazeh. The more common terminology for transgressing an aveda is the word la'aver, to pass, to it's called an aveda. So la'aver aveda, or likoshel, to stumble in a sin, in a something you shouldn't do. The kanshina Rashi lichtev lenatek ba'aroyes, and here Rashi writes the word lenatek, like I mentioned before, that it's a very unusual word. Literally, lenatek means to disconnect or to become disconnected. And the question would be, if all Rashi is trying to explain is why it says the extra words Ani Hashem Elokeichem, and the explanation of Rashi is that it's coming as an introduction to the following set of mitzvahs, why does Rashi use the word lenatik? Ches. Pirushei shel Rashi mekeirei b'teiras ke'elim ala pasuk. The Pirush of Rashi originates in Teiras Ke'anim. Aval sham mevayer v'chein matzinu shenitku ba'arayis shenemar vayishma Moshe es ha'am beicha lemishpechesav v'chein malachi Amar lahem v'zeis shenis tasu kasois dima v'goymar. In the Teiras Ke'anim, which is the origin of Rashi, Teiras Ke'anim brings two psukim that show the Yidden not accepting or rebelling in the area of Arayas. The first is in Chumash, in Parshas Ba'aleischa. It says that Moshe heard the people boicha lemishpechaisav. They were crying lemishpechaisav. So Rashi brings two pirushim. The first pirush is he saw them gathered by family, but in groups of families crying. And this is by the Vayhi'am Kimisoininim, when the Yidden were complaining, he said they were crying in groups by family. Then Rashi brings the second pshat and says they were crying al iskei mishpachas. The fact that the Eibishter did not allow them to marry, to intermarry in their families, to marry relatives, this saddened them to the point that they cried. And from this the Teiras Ke'anim says, you see the Yidden crying against this thing of Arayas. So this is one proof that the Yidden ultimately they rebel in the area of Arayas. The second Rai brings us from the Sefer Malachi, which it says V'zei shenis tasu kaseis dima, which is a second teichacha that Malachi is giving to the Yidden. The pasuk ends kaseis dima as a mizbeach, and Rashi teaches that they were going to the ladies were going to the Beis Hamikdash, to the mizbeach, to cry and for the fact that their husbands were taking non-Jewish wives while they were still married to them. They were going to the Mizbeach like Soitis, because there was a widespread issue of the Yidden taking Goyish wives. As a matter of fact, it's one of the big issues that Ezra had when he came back from Bavel, and there was a problem of Yuchsin, because many of the Yidden had intermarried into the Goyim who were living in Eretz Yisrael at the time. So the Teiras Ke'anim brings two rayas for Nitku Ba'arayas, one from Parshas Ba'aleischa with Moshe Rabbeinu, and the second from Malachi, from this pasuk V'zei shenis tasu kaseis dima. V'Rashi maitik rakzeh Rashi does not mention the boichel mishpechaisav that's in Parshas Ba'aleischa, and only mentions the words b'mei Ezra shehu malachi, which is malachi. In the Gemara in Megillah there's machlokes who malachi is. Some say malachi is Mordechai. Some say malachi was just malachi. There was the name of a navi. But there's a Gemara over there that says that I think it's Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, who says that malachi is Ezra, and Rav Nachman brings a raya that Malachi is Ezra because both of them dealt with the problem of intermarriage. And here in the Sikha, the Rebbe obviously is following the approach that Ezra is Malachi. So this pasuk from Malachi that's brought in Teiras Kehanim, Rashi refers to it as Bimei Ezra. So the question is, why does Rashi skip the Raya from Beichel and Mishbechaisa, from Baal Yischa, which is closer, it's in Chumash, and goes to Bimei Ezra? Ubeyeser yuksha, Rashi hatzmi mefarish al pasuk Beichel and Mishbechaisa, v'Rabbi Seinu amru l'Mishbechaisa al Iski Mishpachis al Rayis and Nesaris Lehem. Rashi himself brings this pshat, like I mentioned before, on the words Beichel and Mishbechaisa. So he can't answer that this is not Pshut Shel Mikra on Beichel and Mishbechaisa, because Rashi brings it in his pasuk, in his pirush. So v'shavig Rashi adugma mashira b'oisi adar zman hakarev la'amiras haparasha, and Rashi skips the example of something that happened in that generation, in a time close to when we're learning this parashas Acharei, or maybe seifan lenatik barais b'mei Ezra kalosharim la'achrei, and instead he brings an example of 1,000 years later. So the question Ches is, why does Rashi skip the Beichel and Mishbechaisa and only bring the Raya from Bimei Ezra, especially since Rashi himself acknowledges that Beichel and Mishbechaisa is Aliski Arayis, and there's something that's in that Doir, and it's Man Karov, and instead Rashi goes straight to Bimei Ezra, which is 1,000 years later. The beer, the Nekudas Habir is going to be that all these times where we say Ani Hashem, Neman L'Shalim Schar, and Dayan L'Yipara, is always at the end of a mitzvah, of a halacha, of an event. And it ends with Ani Hashem. That's the conclusion. That's the finality of it. And over here, Ani Hashem Elokeichem is in the beginning, and that's why Rashi is bothered by it. Let's see how it goes. Because he's based Avshik var Pirish Rashi b'reish parshas ve'ira. B'kavanas hakos v'ani Hashem neman l'shalom schar tev l'mishalchem l'fanei v'chulu. Rashi already explained at the beginning of Ve'era that Ni Hashem means I am trustworthy, that I will pay proper reward, good reward to those who go before me in the proper way. Rashi over there says that this lashon is used in various places, and it's understood the same way. Nevertheless, we cannot apply what was said in Parshas Ve'era to our case. Why? Because Peter says, this Pirush only works when Ani Hashem is said at the end of a command, or in continuation to something that came before it. To emphasize the severity of this command, he ends off and he warns, know that I am Hashem. Meaning to say, I am trustworthy to pay the reward, a schar for those who follow. And actually, if you go through those examples, those tzivuyim that Rashi is referencing, you will find that always Ani Hashem comes behemshich to the something said or something that occurred before it. And for example, in Parshas Ve'era, where Vayomer Elav is actually in the beginning of the parsha, but even in Parshas Ve'era, even though it seems like you're starting a new parsha, it's not a new thing. Ella diber itay mishpat al shehiksha ledaber v'leimar lama reisa lamazav parsha akidemus. Hashem is speaking, is judging Moshe, speaking to him in a judgmental way, because Moshe spoke harshly to Hashem lama reisa at the end of Parsha Shmos. Ubehemshich lazeh amalei, and the Hashem. Why are you second guessing me? Why are you thinking about my actions? I am trustworthy to pay the proper reward for those who follow, so I'm going to do the right thing over here. So why are you asking me? It's actually interesting. I didn't look it up, but if I'm not mistaken, the Perek begins before Lamar Yisa, even though the Parsha starts after Lamar Yisa. But when you divide it by Perakim, the beginning of Va'era is not the beginning of a Perek. I don't know if it's connected, but Ulai, to point out that the words Moshe is a hemshech to Lamar Yisa. And later when Hashem says to Moshe, therefore go tell the Yidden Ani Hashem, Rashi says, I am trusted to fulfill my promise. Also here the Lachein Emer is also not a new inyan. It's the conclusion and the culmination and the support to the Avtacha, the promise that Hashem gave to Moshe when he said, Ani Hashem, Nemon l'shalim schar, v'nemon lipara. He says again, L'chein Nemon l'vneisal Ani Hashem, hu ha'mavtiach, v'hu nemon l'kayim avtachasei, this Hashem who made the promise that he's going to take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, and he is the one who's trusted to fulfill his Avtacha. So in both cases, the Ani Hashem in Va'era, and in many other places, the Ani Hashem is coming at the end, and it is the culmination, and it strengthens that which was said up until here. But if Ani Hashem is said in the beginning of the inyan, and as it is in our pasuk where it starts in the Parsha Dabra Bnei Yisrael Marta Aleim Ani Hashem she'i efshel lefarish da kavana bazehi l'shem Acharei ad gosha shenemon l'shalim schar eli para ki adayin lenemar shum tzivu yayinyin shetochel olav Acharei ad gosha olazu. It's very difficult to say that this Ani Hashem is coming to emphasize or to give an extra warning to something that was said, that the Eibishter is going to reward or punish for it, because nothing was said. There was no commandment. There was no inyan that was already discussed upon which these words, Ani Hashem Alekechem, would be a promise of a punishment or reward. V'imkein, and therefore Rashi is bothered. Mai kavanas hakasav b'mamarta aleim Ani Hashem Alekechem. What is Moshe Hashem trying to tell Moshe, to tell the Yidden when he says Ani Hashem Alekechem? So question Aleph, when we asked in the question Aleph, what's wrong with what we've already learned in Parshas Va'era? It says Parshas Va'era doesn't apply over here, because Parshas Va'era is B'siyum ha'inyan. Therefore it's understood that Ani Hashem is coming to be mechazik what was already said, or coming to conclude, to finish up a story that we already learned. Mashaken over here, that Ani Hashem Lekechem is coming in the beginning. Okay, therefore it must be that Ani Hashem Lekechem is not being said as a beginning to the psukim that come after it. Rather, it's coming as an inyan for itself. In other words, when he says over here, it doesn't mean that it's disconnected, because we're going to see that it is connected. But it's not that it is supporting that which is about to be said, as in that's the punishment for it, because it's very hard to say you're going to get rewarded for something that we weren't told yet to do. So therefore, there has to be a unique meaning to the words Ani Hashem Alekechem. The lashon zeh b'muvan shel tzivui b'fnei atzmai kvar matzinu b'aseres hadibris shebas chalas mamar hakadosh baruch hu anechi Hashem Alekechem v'goymar anechi Hashem Alekecha v'goymar v'apirush sheikablu aleim malchusi yisbarach. So where else do we find, unlike Va'era, where else do we find anechi Hashem Alekecha b'tchilas ha'inyan? In the aseres hadibris. And over there it came as a special inyan of kablu malchusi. You should be mekabel my malchus. That's what Rashi types on anechi Hashem Alekechem. So Anechi Hashem Alekechem is coming to tell the Yidden that they should be Meshubah to Hashem, they should be Mekabel the Eibishter's Malchus. So also over here, when it starts the pasuk Ani Hashem Alekechem, it's referring to not a punishment for something else, but it's referring to the Yidden of Kabbalah's Malchus. No, but that would be repetitious. It can't be exactly like Anechi Hashem Alekecha, because that they already did. Anechi Hashem Alekecha, they already mekabel the malchus of the Eibishter. So what's the hisafa over here of the new Ani Hashem Alekechem? I'm going to move on. That was already done. They already were mekabel the malchus of the Eibishter in Sinai. Nor can you say that this is a tzivui on Kabbalah's mitzvahs, because accepting the mitzvahs is part and parcel of Kabbalah's malchus. Also, if this was Kabbalah's mitzvahs, then this Ani Hashem Elokeichem would have to come before Hashem tells us mitzvahs. And it doesn't, it comes here. So it has to be an inyan chadash, similar to Anechi Hashem Elokecha, which is Kabbalah Malchus. But it can't be Kabbalah Malchus because that was already done. It can't be Kabbalah Mitzvahs because A, it doesn't belong here, and B, Kabbalah Mitzvahs is included in Kabbalah Malchus. So therefore we must say that it's a new category of mitzvahs. Or a new category, a new concept within Kabbalah Malchus and Kabbalah Mitzvahs. Tzivui lekabbalah sug miyuchad shal mitzvahs shadayin le'instavu aleim. It's a commandment to accept upon themselves a new category of mitzvahs that they had not yet been commanded. V'gam le'nichlu lekabbalah zu b'chal kabbalah kol mitzvahs. And this category of mitzvahs was not included in the acceptance of the rest of the mitzvahs, and therefore it needed a new Kabbalah in the words Ani Hashem Elokeichem. So the Havana is very, 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 very clear. The Torah says in the beginning of the parsha, Daber b'leisav amarta le'am Ani Hashem Elokeichem. Why does all of a sudden Ani Hashem Elokeichem? It can't be something that's supporting a previous parsha because there's nothing that's coming before it. So it can't be coming to be mechazik a certain mitzvah or coming after a story. It must be a new inyan al derech anechi Hashem Elokecha, which is an inyan of Kabbalah Malchus. It can't be Kabbalah Malchus tam because that already happened. It can't be Kabbalah mitzvahs because that's part of Kabbalah Malchus. So it must be a new Kabbalah or a Kabbalah and a new concept, a new category of mitzvahs. That's why it says, because something's about to come that you're not ready for. It's different than what you're used to. Therefore, I got to tell you, get ready, accept it. Accept something new upon yourself. You're already kibaltam aleichem malchusi, and now you have to be mekabel not just my mitzvahs, but also the other mitzvahs, but also this new category that I'm about to teach you. What is it? The mitzvah that's about to be taught is the mitzvah of arayis, and this is considered a gzeira, as we're going to explain in Ois Gimel. So obviously, since the mitzvahs that come immediately after the words Ani Hashem Elokeichem are the mitzvahs of arayis, clearly, this is what the pasuk is referring to. That kablu gzeiroisai is referring to arayos, zeisei meres. Even though by the Maimedar Sinai, the Yidden were mekabel upon themselves. They said Nasav and Ishma. They were mekabel upon themselves to be mekayim the mitzvahs. Kol makom yesh leimar shalei kiblu az ela mitzvahs shekeilo shein begeder shaseichel seivlo. It's possible to say they were only mekabel the mitzvahs that seichel, that the human comprehension could understand. Or even those that I don't understand, at least those that are not contradictory to seichel, are not irrational. But mitzvahs that are irrational, mitzvahs that make no sense, and seichel, even seichel de kedusha, I might say, 1 second, this is not what I was mekabel. I was mekabel things that make sense. I was even mekabel things that don't make sense, but at least it's not heipech my seichel, or it's seichel de kedusha at least. But if you're going to introduce something that's heipech ha seichel de kedusha, I wasn't in for that when I said Nasav and Ishma. V'lochein, terem shetziva HaKadosh Baruch Hu parshas hamitzvos shem begeder gzeira arayis k'delalon. Before the Eibishter commands the Yidden anew the mitzvahs that are in the category of gzeira, which means they are heipach haseichel. Harei umaktim tchila lahazhiram al kabbalas hagzeiras b'chlolus. So first he comes to warn them they should accept upon themselves the idea of gzeiras in general. Things lavdavka gzeiras arayis b'yichud. Shaniu shamarti b'sinai anechi Hashem alekechem v'kibaltem alechem malchusi b'yar Sinai. I already said anechi Hashem alekecha and you were mekabel my malchus. Hainu shekibaltem alatzmechem l'kayim mitzvahs. You were mekabel upon yourself to be mekabel my mitzvahs, to fulfill my mitzvahs. Kach meyata kabelu gzeresai. So from here point on you should also accept upon yourself my gzeres. Gam mitzvahs shem begeder gzeres. Even the mitzvahs that are begeder gzeres, even mitzvahs that are begeder gzeres, which means to say that they're decrees, that they don't make sense to you al pi seichel, and sometimes they even oppose your seichel. Now even that you should accept because of the fact that you accepted my malchus by Har Sinai. So this answers a few questions. And before we go weiter, that there's a difference between Kabbalah's HaMitzvahs and between Kabbalah's HaMalchus and Kabbalah's HaGzeiris, and why we use the term Gzeiris. And as we're going to explain in Ois Gimel, why Arayis is called Gzeira, and why Arayis is something that is not Muvan al pi seichel. Ois Gimel. Why is Arayis called Gzeira? So he says like this, something very interesting. Davar muvan hu shebenegeya lenisuin mailes hayuchsin tefesas makom chashuv ve'ikni. It's understood that when it comes to marriage, yuchsin, the yichus, the lineage of the individual, is very important. Especially if someone is a very illustrious lineage, comes from a very illustrious dynasty. For sure, it's going to be important to them that the person who they marry should also have a good yichus. He gives a few examples here where we see in the Torah the importance of yichus. Number one, when it comes to the yichus of Aaron, Bas Aminadav Achos Nachshon. The Torah elaborates to say that his wife's name was Elisheva, who was the niece of Nachshon. To say how unique, how special she was in her yichus. Number one, B'yesa Bas Aminadav. She was the daughter of Aminadav. V'gam Achos Nachshon. She was also the sister of Nachshon. I guess not the niece, but the sister of Nachshon. Rashi mikam lamadnu hanoisa isha tzarek livdik ba'achea. From this we learn that if you marry a woman, you should look at the brothers to see what kind of family she comes from, implying again that the yichus is important. V'chein Avram, another example from Avram Avinu, k'shalachas Eliezer lekachas isha levnei liYitzchak. When he sent Eliezer to find a wife for Yitzchak, Amarlei ki el arsi v'melada ditelech v'lekach the isha levnei liYitzchak. Go dafka back, not from the locals where we live now, but go back to my birthplace. Because the people, the women from my birthplace, they are the ones with the proper yichus, because they come from my family. That if I'm going to look for a shidduch and I want to find someone with a good yichus, I should go to people in my own family. And the closer the relative, the more pasig, the more appropriate is the shidduch. Because since you are coming from a great yichus, then the people who are from your family share the uniqueness of your yichus. So I would think that since we see even in the Torah by Avram Avinu and by Aaron HaKohen, that the Torah emphasizes yichus, but Bechlal we know the importance of yichus. I would think, al pi seichel, al pi svara, that who should a person marry, the closer the relative, the better the yichus. Ubechlal v'ikir, and not only al pi svara of yichus, and generally speaking, tachlis anisun arei u'pru'uruvu. The purpose of the marriage is to be able to build a family. Like the pasuk says that they become one basar b'yaldeim, by coming together, the man and the woman. they become basar echad by having children. How do you move on? So when the wife and the husband are related to each other, then the basar echad is that much more strong. So I would think that al pi seichel, it would make sense that the person we marry is the person that is closer, that is related to us, and the closer the better. And it comes out that Eibishter introduces the halachas of arayis, and it's just the exact opposite. That if a person is related to you, you should not marry them. The whole world was created on the premise that other Mauritians' children, Cain and Evel, would marry sisters. According to the Medrash, how did they have children? It says that the Cain had a twin and Evel had two twins, and they married their sisters, and that's how they brought children onto this world. We also find that Yankiv Nasa Achies. Yaakov married two sisters. And Dafka Yaakov had the most perfect family, more than Avram and Yitzchak. Amram Nasa de Dase. Amram married his aunt. Amram was Ben Kahas, Ben Levi, and Yecheved was Bas Levi. So Yecheved and Kahas were siblings. Yaakov marries, Amram marries his aunt, the Nildu Miriam. Not only are the Yidden thinking to themselves that they want to marry someone close to them, when they look back at their own history from the beginning of creation down to their own Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the product of two relatives who were married. So Shalpi Kolzeh, the Isser of not marrying a relative is exact opposite of everything they're seeing. It's like first you tell me do this, and then you tell me do that. Exact opposite. And this is the example that he brings in the Sikha. As Rashi brings when it came to the Akedah. Yesterday, in other words, in a previous time, you told me that through Yitzchak, I'm going to have my offspring. The Hemshech of Avram's dynasty is through Yitzchak. Then you tell me, go take your son and shecht him on the Akedah. And now you're telling me, don't kill your son. It's almost like he's saying, Avram is saying to the Eibishter, make up your mind. So K'may Kain, over here, first we see Yichus is important. Then we see that other Mauritians' children, Yankiv Avinu, the parents of Miriam and Aaron and Moshe, all marry within their family. Close relatives. And all of a sudden now you tell me no. This is why there had to be a special tzivui of Kabbalah Gzeiraisai, except my Gzeiris, because at Yos that there was something that Al Pi Seichel makes no sense. One could have thought that it was not included in Kabbalah's mitzvahs in general. Therefore, there had to be a special tzivui miyuchad. The first way to say it to the Eibishter, Moshe says to the Yidden, except that some of the mitzvahs are gzeiros that are heipech haseichel, and once you do that, then I can introduce to you the halachas of arayis, which are heipech haseichel, even seichel de kedusha. And this is the biur on the first answer of Rashi. So Rashi was bothered. Why did it say Ani Hashem Elokechem? And it couldn't be, like we said before, a hemshich to something, and it couldn't be Ani Hashem Elokecha. So therefore Rashi says, the lashon of Rashi is Ani Hashem Elokechem v'kibaltem alechem ani hu shamayti b'Sinai Ani Hashem Elokecha v'kibaltem alechem v'chus ma'at Kabbalah Gzeiraisai. He said that the Eibishter, Moshe was introducing to the Yidden, or the Eibishter was introducing to Moshe to introduce to the Yidden a new category in mitzvahs that are heipech haseichel. And therefore there had to be a new Kabbalah, therefore there's a new Anochi Hashem Elokechem. if you're wondering that l'chayda there's other mitzvahs that are also heipech haseichel that are chukim, so he brings in order 22 that chukim is pshat, that we don't know the reason, but chukim are not heipech hatam. That's what he says in order 22. But it could be delved in deeper because there's certain things within a paraduma l'moshel, dafka the person who's being retired, he becomes tamei. So it's l'chayda, it is a shtik l'heipech hatam. But I'm not going to go into that. That's for those who delve a little bit deeper. But he does reference the concept of chukim in order 22 and points out that gzeidis is different than chukim because gzeidis are heipech haseichel. Just a very obvious question, so I wanted to mention it. Okay. So now the question is, why do we need a second shot? Perfect. Why does Rashi have to bring a second shot? So he says, Amram ein pirush hamechuv, well, the Gamri, this pirush is not 100% clear. For two reasons. Aleph, even though it's true that until now there were no mitzvahs that would go into the category of gzeidus, therefore there was no compelling need to introduce gzeidus until now. We come up and bepashtus hayamasim yeser shebeis tzavosi al kabbalas malchusi mitzvahs b'chlal yitzave al kol sugi mitzvahs gama gzeidus. It would have been more sensible to introduce all types of mitzvahs, including gzeidus, when he introduced the original kabbalas malchus and kabbalas mitzvahs, which was by the Acharei Dibris. Why is it divided into two separate sivuyim of Kabbalah mitzvahs and Kabbalah gzeidus in two different times? One is by the Acharei Dibris and one is now based Matan Torah al mitzvahs b'chlal. That by Matan Torah he brings the mitzvahs in general. Base. So the first question is very obvious. It's true that it wasn't necessary until now, but what for? Why postpone it until now? Base. Acharei Gam lifnei Matan Torah, va'afilu libnei Noach nesru arayos. Even before Matan Torah, and even to Bnei Noach, there was still an Easter of arayos. Al kolpanim akrevis b'yeser, at least very, very close relatives, very close relatives. We'll go back. I'm going to in a second. I'll reference where we see that. This would not have included sisters or an aunt, as we see Yaakov Avinu married sisters and Amram married an aunt. But other krevis were asur to bnei Noach. Shegam zeh gzeirahi, which this is also a gzeira, and this is from before Matan Torah. Matan Torah neteisvul mitzvahs, and in Matan Torah there were more things that were added to it. Ve'al kulam amru nasa, and the Yidden already accepted it. So the Etzem, the Yidden already accepted gzeiris, even the gzeiris of arayos. Now, in the other 24 and 25, he brought a Rashi from Bereishis Beis Chav Daled, which is where it says Al Kain Yaz of Ish, and Rashi teaches over there Ruach HaKedesh Emer Kain Leser B'nei Noach Ala Arayos. Al Kain Yaz of Ish is Aviv V'Simoi V'Davak B'Yishter V'Olam B'Serechad. So Rashi says that the Ruach HaKedesh is saying that there's going to be an Isser of Arayos and B'nei Noach. By Yosef it says V'Chatasi Le'Leikim, and it is in Lamed Tes, and Rashi says B'nei Noach Nitztavu Al Arayos. So these are just two examples in Rashi, where Rashi references the fact that Arayos were also to Bnei Noach. So l'cha'era, what is happening now that we have to have a new Kabbalah gzeidus, if l'cha'era this is not the first time that Arayos is being introduced? So therefore, we are, on the first shot of Rashi, which Rashi says that Ani Hashem Elokechem is for Kabbalah gzeidus, similar to the Kabbalah Malchus and Kabbalah mitzvahs of Ani Hashem Elokechem of the Acharei Dibris, the question is, number one, why bring it now and not earlier? Number two, haven't we already spoken about, or at least brought up, the idea of Arayos beforehand? And therefore Rashi comes with a new pshat, that not that it's trying to bring a general Kabbalah gzeidus on everything and the whole idea of accepting mitzvahs that are epechaseichol, but Ani Hashem is a agdoma leparsha ba'achareha. That Ani Hashem is a parsha, is a agdoma, is an introduction to the parsha that's about to come. So second, upirusha yukmeishu nidris bekam v'kemes Ani Hashem. And it means, just like in other places, Ani Hashem is Neman l'shalom schar and Neman l'yipara, that Hashem is going to pay schar, the reward for fulfilling it, and the lack of reward, the punishment for not fulfilling it, it means the same thing over here. We said in the beginning of the Sikha that Ani Hashem belongs at the end. Because at the beginning it's not seen as Akdama. So why is it different over here that it comes in at the beginning? That's because it's coming to emphasize the severity of this commandment. That initially starts out with a gzeira. Gzeira is something strong. Since this is something that they're going to struggle with, they're going to fail at. And therefore he comes lechatchila. Before he even tells what it is, he tells them very strongly, know where the gzeira is coming from. Coming from a dayan li'ipara, one who's a judge, who can punish, someone who's faithful to pay back. Because since it's something that you're going to struggle with, I need to come very strongly down onto you, upon you, to warn you how important this is, so that you should have the strength to overcome it when you struggle with it. Brings number 28 that the lashon ba aleim b'gzeira shows the severity, shows very strong lashon. In other words, you could have used many other lashonos, gazer aleim gzeira or something, but he says when he says bo aleim b'gzeira, he comes onto them with a gzeira, meaning to say he's taking this very strongly. He's being very strong about it, even the fachid aleim, to scare them about it, because he knew that this is something that Yidden are going to struggle with. So this is the second pshat in Rashi of why it says Ani Hashem Elokeichem, to warn them that this is something that's a very difficult mitzvah to keep, and therefore I'm telling you, you should know where it comes from. You should know the results of those who do it or who don't do it. I'm going to mention in a little bit a little bit more about this Dumi Gezer Lechem Tayim Lipara and then L'Shalom Schar, but first I want to talk about the Linatic. First the Sikha is going to talk about the Linatic. Why taka do it? Does it have to be Arayas? Does it need Azaram Yuchedes? Rashi explains it by using the word Linatic. It says Ba'arayas Efshiri V'Goli Lefanov Shebesoifan Yiyekein Pgam Godol Shel Nituk. Arayas has something that could cause nituk, and therefore, because it is so severe that it could create a nituk, therefore there had to be a ba'alei and bigzeda. What's pshat? Linatek pirushe litleish ulahafrid. The word linatek means to uproot, to pull out, to rip out, ulahafrid, and to separate. Umuvonoi kan lahafrid ben Yisrael la'aviyim shvashamayim. To separate between Yidden and the Eibishter. I want to pause here for a second, because after this he's going to talk about another layer of nituk, which is marrying a goy, which is a whole other layer of nituk, because your pashat, the kids are pashat not Yidden, and it's a whole new level of ripping away a child from the Eibishter. But before I even get there, I want to emphasize that even in other arayas when it's not a goy involved, there is also the inyan of nituk. The Rebbe in the Sikha, in the Hanocha of the Sikha that's not brought here in the Mugidike, in the edited final version, the Rebbe brought from the Rogatchover that Lenatek means to move from one place to another place. And he said that a Yid belongs in a place of Anechi Hashem Alekecha, in a place of Atem Adveikim B'Hashem Alekecha. That's where that's the makom of a Yid. And through Arayas, it takes a Yid away from where he belongs in Anechi Hashem Alekecha and V'atem Adveikim, and it puts him in a place where a Yid doesn't belong. So before we even get into what he's going to talk about over here, in the inyan of Nituk, of what happened in Ezra, the very concept of Arayas is it pulls away a Yid from where he belongs and puts him into a place where he doesn't belong. And the Rebbe in the Sikha says it's worse than Avodah Zarah. Because in Avodah Zarah, a person could say the yes by mamish. A person could think that he's worshipping something, there's a benefit from it. There's a yes by mamish, there's something that he could gain from it. But in Arayas, there's nothing to gain from it at all, it's just a taiva. And therefore there's ein by mamish, and therefore all it does is it takes a yid from one place and a place where he belongs, and it throws him into a place where he doesn't belong. And therefore it is such a terrible outcome, the nituk, the upheaval, the disengagement from where a yid belongs to where a yid, and puts him in a place where yid should never be, that the Eibishter had to be Baal Le'em B'Gzeira. He had to warn the yid again and again. As a matter of fact, getting a little carried away, but in the Sikha, the Rebbe spoke about the words Du'umi Gezer Aleichem, Dayan Lihipara, V'ne'eman L'shalem Schar. The Rebbe said that if a person feels a taiva, tarayis, feels a strong taiva, he feels he's being pulled in that direction. He says, first of all, Du'umi Gezer Aleichem. Know who's balabas on the world. Know that the taiva, you can't really live it out. You can't really fulfill it. Because the Eibishter is the creator of the world, and the Eibishter is in charge, and you can't do whatever you want. So the first thing he says is, you feel a taiva, Du'umi Gezer Aleichem. Know that the Eibishter is balabas on the world. Know that the taiva is there, but it's not really yours to do. If you try, you're not going to be successful. It's not going to last. Du'umi Gezer Aleichem. So a person is going to say, okay, fine. Temporarily, let me at least enjoy it. The pasuk is Achrisa Mara Kalana. Let me at least enjoy it now. Later, fine, the punishment will come later. So therefore, he says, "Dayan li para." You're going to try it. There's a punishment. There's a consequence. So the Yid is going to say, in that case, why is there a taiva? Why does the Eibishter do this to me? To give me a taiva like this? The Eibishter, it's only a nisayon. The Eibishter wants to give you a major schar, and the bigger the nisayon, the bigger the schar, and therefore it's a nisayon. But ultimately, if you're able to overcome the nisayon, there's a schar waiting at the end. This is why the lashon goes in this order: Du'umi Gezer Aleichem, Dayan Lihipara, V'ne'eman L'shalem Schar. It's different if you say Ani Hashem Elokeichem. Hashem is midas harachmim, midas chesed, and Elokeichem is midas hadin. So it should have first said Ne'eman L'shalem Schar and then Dayan Lihipara. But I guess that this is what he's trying to say. This Du'umi Gezer Aleichem. Dayan Lihipara, V'ne'eman L'shalem Schar. Therefore, he puts it in this order because there's a full message here. Number one, even if you feel the taiva, don't follow it because the Eibishter is balabas. Number two, even if you want to enjoy it temporarily, know that there's a punishment waiting for you. And if you're going to wonder why Hashem did it to you, Hashem gave you this nisayon, it's because He wants to give you the schar. Okay, I think I digressed enough. It's very geschmack. So if you want to look in the original hanacha of the Farbrengen, when the Rebbe speaks a little bit more at length about the nituk, the disconnection that the Aveda of Arayis could cause to a Yid. But here in the Sikha, the Rebbe takes it to the next level. That not only is Arayis B'chlal a inyan of nituk, but it gets worse. Especially as it's spoken about in the time of Ezra, the arichos that happened through the nituk that happened in the times of Ezra, where the Yidden went and they married goyim le'aleinu v'le'aleinu. B'frat al derech ha'alacha, especially according to halacha, v'shkos v'rambam, id yizeh shel ha'boyel goya, af al pi shein b'misas bezn al yikal b'necha. Ella sheyesh b'hefsed shein b'chol arayis k'maiseh. This idea of being intimate with a non-Jewish woman, even though there's no punishment of Mrs. Bezdin, in a certain sense it seems that it's not so chamor, it's not so severe, because there's no Mrs. Bezdin for it, but don't let it come lightly to you, because there's a certain loss that no other arayis have. If you have a son, a child from an erva, from a person who you're not allowed to marry, it's still your child, and he's still considered a yid, even if he's a mamzer. But a child that's born from a goya is not your child at all, is not considered your child. You are removing your son from me, from being my child. You're removing him from being someone who's following Hashem. So in other words, there's an idea here that you're being menatek, you're disengaging, you're disconnecting your child from Hashem if the child is being born from a non-Jewish mother. Not openly api halacha is this child not a yid, but even also in Pshuti Shel Mikra it's true. It works like this. As Rashi says on that pasuk over there, Lamadnu sheben bidcha abba min hanachri kari bincha, aval ben bincha abba min hanachri ene kari bincha ele bena. The pasuk says ki yasir es bincha me Acharei, but when it says the child of the Goya, it says Bina, her son, not your son. Because even in Pshuti Shel Mikra, there's a difference in the description of the child that's born from an erva, or the child that's born from a nachris. So therefore we find that this is a very, very severe concept, because you're literally ripping away a child from the Eibishter. And since this is such a severe transgression, and knowing that there was actually going to happen in the times of Ezra, where they're going to transgress this inyan of arayis, and there's going to be a problem with many children being born that are not Jewish, he had to give an extra warning, and that's why he says, Ani Hashem Elokechem. This is what Rashi does not use the pasuk of Beichel Mishbechesav. Over there, the Yidden were just crying about the arayis that became asa to them. They were crying about it, but A, they didn't go ahead and do it, and B, more importantly, there was no goyim involved, so there was no real Indian of the Natok. Even though they were not yet commanded against marrying or being with a nachris, a goya. Since over here he's beginning to speak about arayis, which includes this aveda that totally removes the yid from the Eibishter. Even though there's a special issur, a special mitzvah that is going to come on it specifically against marrying a goy. Therefore, right away, since it's talking about arayis in general, and arayis is going to include marrying, not marrying a goy, therefore, right in the beginning, he starts with this idea of a extra strong warning, because this is something that could have terrible repercussions up until the point of nituk, of totally being disconnected from the Eibishter. So this is the second pshat in Rashi of why it says Ani Hashem Elokechem. It is coming as a hakdama to what's about to, and it's an introduction to what's about to come. And the reason why it's not at the end and it comes at the beginning, because Ba'ale and Bigzeri is coming down strongly on them, because this is something that is a very, very severe Aveda with very, very severe repercussions. Ulam. Piruzeh ein echad v'chalak. One of the questions was, why do we need two pirushim? We could have just brought this one and not the other one. So he says this one is not chad v'chalak, it's not smooth, it's not clear. And it's even more problematic than the first one. Ki kasha loymar b'pshuti shel mikra shekavonas hakdamos hakasuv kan hi mipnei meura sheyera zman rav achar kach uletzivui sheyisparesh b'parsha acheres. It's very difficult to say that this extra pasuk is coming because of an event that was going to occur 1,000 years later, and a tzivui that wasn't even clearly written in this parsha. It comes as later in Parshas V'aschanon or in Parshas V'aschanon. I'm not sure where else it's mentioned by heart. And that's why Rashi brings the first pirush, which is the primary pirush, because even though we had a shaila why it comes now, and certain arayos were usher before, but at least in the first shot, it's a very simple thing. He's telling you, I'm about to introduce to you certain things that are hepech haseichel, and you might wonder and say, hey, I didn't include that in my nasav and ishma. So I'm telling you, you're mekabel my malchus, you have to be mekabel my gzeres. The second pirush, it comes to answer that question of l'cheira, why does it come there and why not earlier? What about the other arayos? But nevertheless, I can't bring that one as the first and primary pirush because it's hard to say that a pasuk would be introduced because of an event that doesn't come until 1,000 years later. That mitzvah that it's referring to is not even in this parsha. Nevertheless, how are we going to answer the question? Why does the Torah come to teach us something that's 1,000 years away? In order to at least minimize somewhat this question. The Torah should speak about something that's not going to occur for many, many years. This is why Rashi emphasizes This is why Rashi emphasizes that Rabbi is the one who taught this pshat. This pshat about Seifel and Natok Barayis. What's unique about Rabbi? Rabbi Siddur v'kasav Mishnayos. Rabbi organized and wrote the Mishnayos. And even though the Seder was, those things that were passed down Baal Peh were not allowed to be written down b'ksav. So how could Rabbi write the Mishnah? Nevertheless, it became mutter to write it. Because it's something that has to be done for Hashem, the Torah is uprooted. It's impossible to not write it. Because the hearts are getting weaker and the Torah is being forgotten. Therefore they changed, they broke the words of Torah for the necessity of the time. It's interesting to point out that at that time, the time of Rabbi, they didn't need yet the Torah to be written down, the Mishnayos to be written down. There was going to come a time much later than Torah was by Rabbi was Torah Gdula b'makam echad. A time was going to come. So the Rebbe says in the Sikha, when Rabbi came to write down the Mishnah, haben Yidden gedarft angucken modna. The Yidden should have looked strangely at him. Torah Sacha. It's the Torah of the Eibishter. How could you heiferu? How could you change the Torah? Nevertheless, came Rabbi and said, that we need to do this for Hashem, and Torah Sacha, the Eibishter's Torah itself, could be changed to save the Eibishter's Torah. Now, Hashem was said by David HaMelech in Tehillim, way before Rabbi's times. Rabbi is saying that when David HaMelech said, what did he mean? He meant that a time is going to come hundreds and hundreds of years later where there's going to be the Kufas HaMishnah and there's going to be a Rabbi and he's going to have to write the Torah so it shouldn't be forgotten. And Rabbi is teaching and this pasuk being said by David HaMelech is talking about the writing of the Mishnah. So from the fact that we see that Rabbi, from not just from the way he types the pasuk, from the way he lived his life, from the fact that he was the one to be misader in the case of a Mishnah, that he lived this idea that you could be a pasuk in Tanakh, pasuk in Tehillim that was said 800 years earlier, and it was referring to a time of later. So too it could apply to us, to our pasuk. Ezra, that it's referring to the time of Ezra, which then they were going to rebel or disengage or disconnect or struggle or however you're going to touch it in with arayos. So Rabbi Rabbi could teach it here as well, because Rabbi is the one who does not find a problem with a pasuk from 1,000 years earlier being applied to an event of 1,000 years later. So therefore Rashi mentions Rabbi to at least to minimize the question that we would have on why would the pasuk add the extra pasuk because of something that was going to happen much later. So once again, it's Rabbi. Rabbi has no problem with that, and at least that minimizes our question. So we now understand why the Parashas Vayera is not good enough, because Vayera Ani Hashem is afterwards, and over here Ani Hashem comes before. We now understand the difference between Kabbalah Malchus and Kabbalah Gzeirus, because Kabbalah Gzeirus is referring to mitzvahs that are not moving al pi seichel and that are hepech ha-seichel. Why it comes now dafke? Because now is when we're talking about adayis, which are the hepech ha-seichel, or because seichel and natok ba'adayis. And there had to be a special tzivui for it. Why it says kablu gzeiros? Because it's different than regular mitzvahs, because it's hepech ha-seichel. Why there's two pshatim we just explained. Why he mentions Rabbi is to explain why. Why he mentions Rabbi is to explain why we would have a pshat that a pasuk is telling us something that's relevant to 1,000 years later. Why he says the lashon lenatek, because lenatek is how it is to explain the chayber inyan of why there had to be, according to the second pshat, a special extra limud of Ani Hashem Alekechem, and why he doesn't say Beichel Mishpecheisav, and he only brings the case of Malachi and Ezra, because he wanted to show a case of where there was a terrible nituk, which is what happens in the case of Ezra, and not so much in the case of Beichel Mishpecheisav.